Hi, in this video we are going to be painting our gingerbread man on your 8x10 canvas. First, I would like to apologize for the delay in posting this. So we're going to get started right away so that we can get this uploaded for you, and I hope you enjoy painting him. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is work on this background. Because this is white, before we get anything in our white, let's go ahead and use our big brush. And I'm just going to dip it in my water to soften it up, but I'm going to go straight into my white and paint the background. Now I know that the canvas itself is white, but this will brighten it up just a little bit. So you want to go around your gingerbread boy or girl. By the way, guys, if you want to change the painting in any way, that is totally up to you. We encourage that creativity. I actually have seen this painted with silver right here, like a gray, and it looked like he was on a cookie sheet. That was kind of cool. So just get the white all around him. Don't worry about the edge that is towards the edge of the canvas, because we'll come back with the green on that and we can clean it up. Just get the white all around him. You know that you're turning your brush. You can make a thick, if you have your brush this way with the bristles pressing on the canvas, that's going to make a thick line. If you turn it this way, you can get right up here. It's a much thinner line. You can get in smaller spaces. Or you can use your little brush at any time. If you have some smaller brushes there, you can use those to get around his arms and right between his head and his arms, head and neck. Okay, with white still in my brush, you don't need to rinse. We're going to make that green. So we're going to take just a little bit of white onto our mixing plate. You're going to take a big scoop of yellow, put it right on top of the white, and then you can take just a corner, a little bit of blue. I actually may have taken too much, but I can always add more yellow. And then you're going to mix that in a small pile. We're going for kind of a lime green color. So if it's too dark, add some more yellow. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, so I just want to make sure that my bristles have all the paint mixed. Mix them on the plate. All right, let's put this green around the edge. And what you're going to do, we just talked about that flat brush. You're going to come to the top, and all you need to do is make a wavy line going down. Try to stay out of his arm. It doesn't need to follow the lines. It just is kind of a curvy line. Same deal with the top. If you want to give yourself some curve. Just wave your brush down the canvas. Then you can go back and fill in the edge. And then I'm going to go along the bottom with this. Okay. If it's a little bit light or you see a lot of streaks, excuse me, you can let it dry and put another coat on. See how that looks a lot? If you look at this side where I put 2 coats and here where there's just one, you can see this is more solid and it's also a little bit darker. So if you would like, you can go over everything we just painted. You do want to let it dry. My layer is not very thick, so although I don't think it's totally dry, if I'm putting it on gently over top, it's okay. All right, and then after you have that green on, you're going to rinse your brush. We're going to mix a little bit of that dark brown color. Okay, so go ahead and rinse your brush. Okay. The gingerbread man has 3 different shades of brown. Actually, one is a shade. So take a scoop of brown, actually probably a little more than that. And then I'm going to take another scoop of brown to make a different pile. In one pile, I'm just putting a little bit of black. This is a darker brown color. Some people like to use this color for the full gingerbread man himself. I was just going to use this as around the edges, but if you like this color better than the straight red brown, that's totally good. You can use this. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush because in the other pile of brown, I'm just gonna put a little bit of white. So just a corner of my brush of white, not a lot. And this is gonna be the lighter brown color. When you look at the picture, this is more towards the center and the darker colors are more towards the edge. And so he's kind of crisping up at the edges there as he's baking. All right. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, and as you can see, this is all blended. So you're really just gonna go back and forth between the colors. The only real distinction is that that darker color is more towards the edge. Okay, so I'm actually gonna start with the regular, just straight brown. This is just the red brown from your plate, just to get some on there. And then what we're gonna do is while it's still wet, we'll add some of those other colors in. So this, again, is just the straight red-brown from your plate. And take your time. You can use your little brush too to get right up to the edges there. Okay, first I'm just gonna take a little of that light brown color and put it towards the center. At first you may not notice too much of a difference. Just keep adding it until you can kind of see a difference. See that? If you want to put some more of that red-brown on top, you can. Once you have white in your brush though, it may be hard to just use the straight red-brown color. You may need to rinse your brush to get the white out. You can see how it's blending. As long as your paint is wet, it will blend right on your canvas. If you want to just make him one color, that's fine. You don't have to do this. Now this, I'm going to add a little bit of brown on the edge, and notice, again, I'm not going flat to make a big thick line. I'm going sideways, and I'm just adding a little bit at the edge. And you can actually take your finger if you want and blend that in, or I'm just pulling the paint towards the center of his leg. Then if I feel like I got too dark, I could go back with that lighter brown in the middle. And that's how I'm gonna do sort of one arm, one leg at a time, just keeping the paint wet, and I'm gonna put that darker color towards the edge. Then when I'm ready to move on, I'm just using the same technique, and I'm going with the regular red-brown from your plate. And then I'm adding the lighter color towards the center. And then a little bit of the dark around the edge. I'm just going to say it may actually be easier to add that in with your finger or the little brush so you get a nice thin line of it. You can try that. I don't like all those brush strokes in there, so once I have the paint on there, I can kind of smooth it out. The brown that has the white in it too will help smooth things out. Anytime you're adding white to a color, it makes it less streaky. Okay, and then I'm gonna use my little brush now. I just want to try that for adding the dark. You'll probably find that easier. Seems like since my paint's still wet and I have those other colors on there, it's easier to put on a thin layer and kind of blend it towards the center. Now we're gonna make some decorations for our gingerbread man. We can use that same green for his tie, so we don't need to make that. If you wanna make his tie a different color, or if you wanna give him some different buttons, you don't have to use white necessarily. It's kind of just white for the icing, but it doesn't have to be white. You could give him those red hots as his buttons. Okay. All right, so that's a lot of blending. Different browns, 3 different browns. We're gonna let him dry a little bit. All right, I'm going to, actually before we mix anything, I'm gonna draw those white snowflakes on our green background. So if you just wanna take your palette into the straight white, we're going to make an X with a line through it. You can make these different sizes and you can put them wherever you want, but I'm just gonna draw an X and a line straight through the center. Now you can see that my green paint is a little bit wet still, so if you have the time to let it dry completely, or if you have a blow dryer, you can make sure that that's completely dry. These don't need to be exactly spaced or in the corners. I'm just gonna put a few around. These are the big snowflakes, and then we're actually gonna use the back of the brush to add some dots, some snow around the edges. If you want to do something else around the edges, that's totally good. Maybe I'll put one more here. Okay, so I'm just going to use the back of my little brush. You could also use the back of a big brush, and I'm going to place it against the canvas, maybe twist it just a little so that it makes a nice circle, and you can add this all around on that green space. If you want to use some red too, that would be pretty. You could put some red dots in there, especially if you're going to do the red hots for his buttons. It's nice to add different colors around the painting, like repeat the same colors. It helps move the eye around the painting. So let's say you are going to use red in the center. You could use some red dots on the edge here too. That'd be kind of cool. And then once you get these dots in the background, I'm actually going to put a dot at the end of each spoke of my snowflake and in the center. So they kind of end in that dot. This is going to take a little time. So take your time on this. If you need to stop the video and let your painting dry, or stop it so that you can get all your snowflakes, that's totally good. I hope you enjoyed the cookies too. They were really cute. And it was really cool that we had the gingerbread man and the gingerbread house. This is good too because it gives our gingerbread man a little bit of time to dry before we add the detail and the icing to him. Don't forget the center of each of these. more, I'm going to wipe the back of my brush, and I'm gonna use the bristles now to draw on the icing. I'm gonna go very lightly because I think that it's probably still wet. So I'm gonna put a little bit of icing on each arm and leg. And it's a little bit from the end, so not quite near the end. Maybe if you want to think of it as kind of halfway along the arm. And I'm just going to real lightly put a squiggly line down each arm. So it's just a real light wavy line. You can go over that. You can see that it's mixing with the brown because my brown is not dry. But if you let it dry, you can just go right over it. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the leg. I'm just going to go side to side on the leg. Okay. And then you can use either the front or the back of the brush to give him these little buttons right down the center. So he has 3. And I'm just rotating the edge of the end of the brush very, very lightly so I don't pick up the brown in a little circle. These are a little bit bigger than those snowflakes that we added to the edge. Okay, I'm gonna wipe the end of this, and I'm actually gonna use the back of the big brush to start his eyes. So go ahead and wipe off the little brush because you don't want to reach for it and have your hand get a bunch of white paint on it. I'm gonna clean off the big brush, and then I'm gonna dip that in the black paint. Okay. These are gonna be his eyes. So just in the middle of his head, we are gonna put a little white dot in them, so you want them to be, not huge obviously, but I'm just rotating it around a little bit. Okay. All right, let's make some pink for his mouth. With my little brush, most of the time I do mix with my big brush, but we only need just a very, very small amount of pink, and honestly, we don't have pink in the other gingerbread house, so I'm just gonna take a scoop of white with my little brush and a little bit of red, and I'm gonna mix that together. If you wanna make his mouth just straight red, you could do that. So I've got this nice pink, and I'm getting all of the paint off the brush. I'm twisting it around. That gives it a good point, but it also, when I'm mixing, I get a lot of paint in the bristles. So I don't want the bristles to have a ton of paint in them. I'm just going to real lightly add this smile. And again, I'm picking up some brown paint, so let me dip in the pink again. If you have patience, it will turn out better. All right. So that's my smile. I might need to go over it because I'm definitely mixing with the brown paint a little bit. Okay. Gonna rinse my brush, my little brush. And I'm gonna use that green. And again, this is using the same color that we used in the background. So I'm gonna get green on my brush. And I'm gonna draw 2 triangles pointing toward each other. So 1 triangle. I'll fill those in a second. And then here's the other one. You can fill those in with the green. And then I'm going to, you could use the back of the big brush or the little brush, but I'm just gonna put a red dot right in the center of his tie with the back of my little brush here. Just rotate it around a little bit. There's his tie. And then the last thing we need to do is put the little white sort of reflection dot in his eyes. So I know that black is still wet, but if I touch the little brush to the black very, very lightly, then I should be okay. So I've got the little brush in the white, and I'm just gonna dab in each eye real lightly. And that is going to finish off our gingerbread man. All right. So I think he's all set. If you want to go over his mouth one more time, you could. But let's move on to our gingerbread house.